Daniel Lacalle, welcome to our show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Interest rates look set to rise again after Fed Chair Jerome Powell's speech today. What will that mean for people's day-to-day lives and for businesses?
Mainly for businesses, it means tougher access to credit and more expensive, obviously. And for families, certainly what we'll see is a further increase in mortgage rates. Not much more, to be fairly honest. The rate hikes that we are seeing are headline grabbing, obviously, but they're not generating a very drastic tightening of credit conditions. So because there's so much liquidity in the economy, banks are likely to continue with very comfortable and easy conditions for most of their customers, but certainly a little bit of a tightening.
Now, you recently wrote, "There's nothing that the government gives for free that you don't pay for one way or another." President Biden just canceled a lot of student loan debt for a lot of people. What's your take on that?
Well, canceling student debt has certain elements of merit. However, if you decide to cancel student debt, but that doesn't come also with a vast reduction in government spending, what you're basically doing is passing the cost to all of the citizens in higher taxes and higher inflation. So ultimately, what ends up happening is that a few thousand or hundreds of thousands of students will get some form of relief, but everybody else will get higher inflation and higher taxes. More importantly, unfortunately, these measures do nothing in terms of reducing tuition fees. So in essence, these types of measures, unless they're really well done with a significant reduction of spending and at the same time measures to prevent the perpetuation of high fees, are not going to achieve much, particularly for the newer generations.
Now, there's mixed messaging from policymakers about whether the U.S. is in a recession. What do you think?
I think that the signs of a very weak economy are there. We've seen it in the PMIs. We've seen it in even in the consumer confidence surveys, etc., that show a small bounce, but from very low levels. No, so I think that the economy is not in good shape. The economy is certainly going still at a pace that allows it to show a certain level of strength coming after a very aggressive stimulus plan, but that fades away very quickly. And we've already seen it. We have already seen how the government spends trillions of dollars and generates very little growth for it. So citizens all over America and businesses all over the United States are all saying the same thing, which is that the situation is extremely negative for small and medium enterprises, for families, for the average worker. And that is due to bad fiscal and monetary management.
How did we get here?
How did we get here? First, in 2020, when the government decided to shut down the economy because of a pandemic, the government at the same time decided to increase massively government spending and to print aggressively money from the central bank with a central bank decision. Those two things made a giant increase in money supply that when the economy reopened did not stop. And this is a key factor. So when the economy reopened, we went back to spend a little, to conduct our normal activities, but the enormous government spending and the enormous money supply growth didn't change. Therefore, what was already an inflationary pressure generated by a policy that was basically focused on demand policies in an environment in which there was no problem of demand. We were just locked down. And what ended up happening is that it created an even larger inflationary pressure. And that is being perpetuated. And that's why it's so important that the Federal Reserve increases its rates, and certainly that the government stops these enormous stimulus plans that always end with more debt and weaker growth.
All right, Daniel Lacalle, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.